Hi there, my name is Vanessa Smedley and I'm a painter. Well, today we're going to do something just a tiny bit different in the fact that I'm not going to be painting with watercolor today. I'm going to be using graphite, which you would normally associate with just pencils or sketching, but I'm going to be painting with it because this is a little pan of graphite right here, water-soluble graphite, and we're going to use it as we would use watercolor. So we are going to sketch or paint this little skull right here as a value study and get very Georgia O'Keeffe with it. I mean, kind of, I guess. So let's do this. I'm just going to show you really quick how to use this stuff. I mean, it's not a new product, so maybe you already know, but if you're like me and you grew up in a very small rural community that had to drive to the next town over to the big box craft stores and that was the only selection you had of art supplies, then maybe you've never seen it. So here we go. All right, so this is probably pretty self-explanatory to be honest with you, but it's called Art Graf, and you open it up and there's your cake of graphite and you wet it just like you would any other watercolor, and then you take it and you put it on your paper. You can add as much water as you want to, and as you can see, it gets really, really dark when you like just go in there straight like that. And it actually, from the one time I've used it before, it gives you a really like smooth transition, so much more so than pencils. And it gets really, really dark. And also it does not have much of that graphite shine that can be so annoying. So it should be a lot of fun for doing a value study because you got some really, really light lights and some really, really dark darks. All right, so here is our subject for today, a lovely deer skull. My husband is a hunter, but that is neither here nor there. I'm unfortunately not able to dramatically light this like I would like to, just because, you know, I've got to have that on so that you guys can see what I'm doing down there, and it's awfully close to it, so it's kind of lighting it more evenly than I would like, but I mean, I still think it'll be an interesting value subject. And the reason I picked it is just because there's not a lot of saturated colors in it. So I think it'll make a nice graphite drawing. So let's do this. All right, so I'm gonna use a number 6 here. I think that's probably as small as I need to go because there's just an awful lot of very small little areas in this. And so I've got my little Caran d'Ache pencil thing over here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and like get some of that and make sure it's not too dark. You've got to test this a lot just because it's kind of hard to see how dark it's gonna be unless you test it on the paper. And I am going to just start filling in some of this shadow real quick. So you're starting right there behind on the back part of the skull, and it looks like there's a little ridge of that comes down here on that little ridge in the skull. I'm going to bring that on down like that. I'm going to smooth some of that out with some clean water. It works just like watercolor in that way. You smooth the edges with clean water, and that's how you get a nice smooth blend. And these are interesting when you compare them to like water-soluble graphite pencils, because it definitely, like those you would normally like add the color as you would a pencil and like draw it on there. But this, you kind of just take that that pigment or graphite, whatever you want to call it, and just paint with it. So it gets a lot smoother of an effect for sure. So you've got this little ridge that goes down deep in here. And so I like it a lot. I like that kind of effect a lot. It's kind of an interesting thing where it's like you almost expect it to be sketchy, but it's not, because it's a lot like paint. But it's very kind of like, I don't know, like what the word would be, kind of luminous, I guess, when you use it in this way. A little darker there. So I don't know, it might not be for everybody, but it's a very, I think, just interesting way to handle graphite. And it definitely gives you a little bit of variety to spice things up if you're kind of bored with what you're using. If you're bored with watercolor, it helps. If you're bored with pencil, it helps. It's kind of halfway in between the two. It's very interesting. And you just like, you know, add more water to dilute it, just like you would anything else with paint. Bring that down here. You've got some shadow there behind it. Darker shadow here underneath that little ridge. I'm hoping that you can even see what I'm doing here. I don't know exactly how well this is going to show up. Okay. You've got a darker area here. It does, what I have noticed, dry so quickly on this, on the little cake here. Like you can see that as I'm doing it, you can just see, you can watch the water evaporate off of it. So that's kind of an interesting aspect here. Oops, I've gotten that too dark because of that. Let's bring this a little darker right here. You have all these little structures in the bone right here that I'm trying to simplify this just a little bit because I don't want it to be just like completely over detailed. You know, I want to get the gist, but I don't want it to be like completely an anatomical sketch, you know, because like I don't want it to be like a scientific anatomical sketch. You know, there's not really any need for that unless you're doing scientific journals. Like, that's not my focus here on doing this. I'm just, you know, studying the structures of the skull in case I want to like paint a deer later in life, you know, then I'll have this experience under my belt, you know. So this is a little darker here on this side where the light is not hitting it. All right, now this is going to need to be, what I found too is this is really easy to darken up. You just go right back over the top of it, because that needs to be a little darker for sure, because it is on the back side of this thing. And it is just like watercolor, it does lighten up as it dries, so you will have to adjust your values as you go. Now at some point I'm going to have to blend that, or put in the background behind these little like holes down here where you can see the holes, because otherwise there's not going to be any contrast. Because what I'm looking at, it's like a very dark wood color. And as I'm painting it right now, it's just on plain paper. So that's going to make it difficult to see what's going on in that area if I don't go back and at least add shadow. Okay, so some of the darkest areas of this thing is going to be actually like right there at the base of the horns. So I'm just going to add some of that in there like that. And it's real bumpy there too. Kind of interesting. All right, and then it comes, it's a little lighter once it starts reaching upward. So I'm gonna get some water to dilute that. That's going to be kind of the lightest part of that, I think. It doesn't get much lighter than that on the antlers. Did I call them horns earlier? I wonder if that's I don't even know if that applies for the, like, they are horns, but nobody ever says horns for deer. They say antlers. So I apologize for all you hunter people out there who are like, what are you talking about? I am from Oklahoma, but I've never been hunting. It's not really my deal. And so far, if you'll notice, I have not had to like stop and allow things to dry. I'm just, you know, going on, and I haven't really noticed any cauliflowers or blooms developing or anything like that. So it's interesting. Now I think I need to darken some areas up on that because it's looking pretty flat. Gotta have some shadow going on and some 3D modeling. We got to do a little bit of detailing down here in the teeth, and that's super tiny, so I think I'm going to trade over to my number 4. Alright, that's almost done, really. Like I said, I don't want to go with just a ton of detail. I do need to come back in here and darken this area to where you can differentiate those little pieces in there a little better. A little bit of this kind. Oh, we've got some little holes right here in these areas. We've got a darker hole here. I might give a little bit of definition here between all these weird little pieces here. Trying to decide if I really want to add any kind of background. I don't know that I do, but if I don't, you won't see these little pieces down here. I'm not sure if it's that important though. This little, not that dark, good gravy, as some would say in Oklahoma. Not very many, but some, at least my family did. A lot of my sayings come from Missouri too, though, because my granny was from Missouri. I know, like, none of y'all at all care about that, but it's just providing a little bit of context. All right, I'm gonna come back in with a little bit of detail on the horns, antlers, whatever you call whatever you call them. Good gosh. Being from the country like I am, you would think that I would know what deer horns are called. But, you know, I moved to the city a long, long time ago, so I don't know that I can be a poster child for country anymore, other than in my accent, of course. Okay, now I am going to let that dry and then think about what I've done and then come back and make some decisions on what I want to do with the rest of it. All right, so I've had some time to think about what I want to do here, and I do want to add some definition back here behind this so that we can see some of those holes and just some of that definition there. But I don't want to paint in an entire background because I feel like it's just overkill. So what we're going to do is we're going to go very Georgia O'Keeffe, and not to copy off her, but to give her tribute as a trailblazer. And we're going to add this little fake blue flower here. You know, pay no attention to the enormous red clip in the back that's holding it up there, but you know, we're going to leave that out because I'm not a fan of like this whole like wooden thing here, so I want to leave it out, but I do want to provide that contrast. So we're going to do that with the blue flower. I'll probably speed all this up for you since this has already been kind of a long video, and then we will show you kind of what we end up with. All right, so here we go. It is dry, and then I'm just gonna give this little, trying to lift it out or erase it, a little bit of a whirl. This is a Mono Zero from Tombow. It's a tiny little eraser on the end of that. And I'm gonna come in and try to do some highlights on the flower, because I think I got some of that a little bit too dark. So let's see if this erases at all. I mean, it does a little bit. I mean, you're definitely probably not going to get back down to the white of the paper there, but it does lift a nice little highlight. Just a tiny little bit. I'm not even really sure if you can see that. Maybe you can on that little dark piece right there, where it started out really dark. And you can kind of see where it's lifting a bit. Let's see if we can lift this tiny little edge. It does lift a little bit. We're going to bring that back over here and try some of that, lifting this area. That is the area closest to the light source. And I went in a little dark to start out with, I think, on that kind of stuff. So down here as well. It does take quite a bit of elbow grease to get it off, though. That is kind of bending off my eraser, so I need to click some more out to try to get it, you know, any level of actually lifted. All right. Yeah, I mean, that works a little bit. Okay. Now I want to like try to lift it with water and see how that goes. That's why I have my little shop towel here. So let's go in to an area that I haven't done yet. Let's see. Maybe right here. yeah, it does lift a little bit. I mean, I wouldn't say it's significantly different either way, but it does lift a little bit. That was noticeable. I'm not sure which direction, I mean, which one does it better, either the eraser or the lifting with water. But what I do is I just like scrub it a little bit like that and then use a shop towel on it. That actually works pretty good. Maybe that is the one that works a little bit better. Let's try it up here where I tried it earlier and see if that helps any. Because this area right here really needs to be lighter than I allowed it to be. Oops, I think my shop towel was a little bit dirty. Got it on the white, oops. That's okay. I mean, this is really not meant to be a finished piece. This is really meant to be a sketch/study, which means I probably put too much detail into it, but that's kind of a problem that I tend to have, so you know. Let's go ahead and lift this area out as well to provide some more contrast there. Ooh, that lifted really nice, actually. And there's the finished product, all dry and the tape removed and all that kind of stuff. And I think I'll just bring this up closer to you so you can kind of see a little bit more detail. And you can see that it doesn't really have much of that graphite shine, but it does have kind of an ethereal quality as far as like the difference between sketching like with pencils and sketching with this graphite stuff. I don't know, it's a lot of fun to mess with, especially for something different. And there you have it, a little value study that doubles as an anatomy study in water-soluble graphite. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, all of that stuff, because that's how this channel gets to grow, y'all. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again in 2 weeks. And there you have it. I keep rattling that around like it's a maraca.